Throughout the history of modern combat, only a few weapons have ever truly earned legendary status. Even fewer have continued fighting long after newer and more technologically advanced firearms tried to replace them. This is the account of a rifle that served in both world wars, numerous colonial campaigns, and regional conflicts for over a century. It was a weapon so trusted and so admired by its users that it continued to see frontline combat well into the 2000s. This is the story of the Lee Enfield rifle, the bolt-action firearm that refused to fade away. The year is 1888. The British Empire dominates nearly 1/4 of the world, yet its army faces an urgent challenge. For years, British forces have been armed with single-shot rifles, while their enemies increasingly wield repeating firearms, capable of firing multiple shots without the need to reload after every round. In the hills of Afghanistan, across the plains of Africa, and along the frontiers of India, British troops are finding themselves outmatched by opponents with superior firepower. The British military accepts the reality: the era of the single-shot service rifle is over. They now require a magazine-fed repeating rifle that preserves the accuracy and dependability expected of British arms, while also delivering the rapid rate of fire required by modern battlefields. The answer would arise from an unexpected partnership between a designer born in Scotland and engineers of the British Army. James Paris Lee, originally from Hawick, Scotland, emigrated to Canada as a child and later moved to the United States. There, he invented a groundbreaking detachable box magazine featuring a double-column design that held more cartridges than the common single-stack systems of the era. At the same time, William Ellis Metford developed a new barrel design with 7 shallow rifling grooves to reduce fouling from black powder ammunition. When Lee's magazine and rear-locking bolt system were combined with Metford's innovative barrel, something remarkable emerged. The first rifle integrating these elements was adopted by the British Army in December 1888, the magazine Lee Metford. This initial model used an 8-round detachable magazine and fired the .303 British cartridge, representing a massive leap forward from the single-shot Martini-Henry rifle that had preceded it. Yet, this early design was only the beginning. The introduction of smokeless cordite propellant in the early 1990s created a new problem. The intense heat and pressure generated by this modern powder quickly eroded Metford's shallow rifling. To overcome this, engineers at the Royal Small Arms Factory in Enfield redesigned the rifling with deeper, square-cut grooves and 5-groove patterning that could withstand the stress of smokeless ammunition. By 1895, rifles equipped with the improved Enfield-style rifling and a larger 10-round staggered column magazine entered service as the magazine Lee Enfield, the foundation of a weapon whose legacy would become unmatched. Combat during the Boer War revealed both the strengths and shortcomings of the long rifle and carbine versions then issued. The British Army began reconsidering its long-held doctrine. Rather than maintaining separate long rifles for infantry and shorter models for cavalry and artillery, they aimed to create one universal rifle size suitable for all branches. Trials for a shortened rifle began in 1902. In January 1904, the short magazine Lee Enfield Mark I was officially adopted. But it was the refined Mark III model, introduced in January 1907, that would secure its place in history. The brilliance of the Lee Enfield was not found in one single groundbreaking feature, but in the seamless combination of smart, practical design decisions. The action operated with exceptional smoothness and speed, thanks to rear-locking lugs that enabled a bolt throw of only 60 degrees. This seemingly small mechanical detail made a tremendous difference in combat. Trained riflemen could operate the bolt rapidly while keeping the weapon shouldered, preserving their sight alignment between shots. The placement of the bolt handle toward the rear, close to the shooter's trigger hand, created a major ergonomic advantage over many other contemporary rifles with forward-mounted locking lugs. British soldiers could fire and reload significantly faster than their adversaries. Its magazine capacity alone spoke volumes. While most bolt-action service rifles of the time held 5 rounds, the Lee Enfield carried 10 cartridges in its detachable magazine, giving British infantrymen double the firepower before needing to reload. It could be replenished using 2 5-round stripper clips or topped up 1 round at a time while still attached to the weapon, a vital benefit in desperate close-range firefights when every second mattered. Even the iron sights demonstrated thoughtful engineering. The aperture rear sight allowed for quicker adjustments over varying ranges, and target acquisition through a peep sight was noticeably quicker and more precise than the narrow blade and notch configurations used on many other rifles of the era.
The rear sight system was calibrated for distances out to 2,000 yards. The SMLE Mark III had an overall length of 44.5 inches with a 25-inch barrel, longer than a carbine but shorter than a full-sized rifle, making it perfectly suited for infantry, cavalry, and support troops alike. When the First World War broke out in August 1914, the British Expeditionary Force marched into Belgium carrying their Lee Enfields. What happened next would become legendary. At the Battle of Mons on August 23rd, German troops advancing in tight formations came under such a tremendous volume of British rifle fire that they became convinced they were facing rows of machine guns. In truth, they were witnessing the terrifying combat efficiency of British professionals armed with Lee Enfields. Soldiers of the BEF, hardened by extensive pre-war training, could unleash 15 carefully aimed shots per minute at a distance of 300 yards. Exceptional marksmen could reach 30 rounds per minute or more, expertly working the bolt and firing even under the chaos of battle. This rapid-fire technique, drilled extensively in peacetime and known as the Mad Minute, repeatedly demonstrated its effectiveness in the early phases of the war. German reports after the battles described their astonishment at the ferocity of British rifle volleys. Troops accustomed to the slower pace of Mauser rifle fire or controlled bursts from machine guns were suddenly being devastated by what appeared to be an impossibly high rate of accurate fire from bolt-action rifles. Personal accounts tell of German units being cut down at distances over 1,000 yards by British marksmen choosing their targets with lethal accuracy. As the war dragged into trench stalemate, the SMLE adapted seamlessly. The Mark III version earned a reputation for reliability in the mud-choked trenches of the Western Front, remaining functional in conditions that would jam more delicate, finely tuned rifles. In January 1916, a simplified variant entered production, the Mark III Star. It kept all the essential combat performance while eliminating features no longer needed in trench fighting, such as the magazine cutoff and long-range volley sights. These changes sped up manufacturing and made upkeep easier. By the war's end, around 3.88 to 4 million SMLE rifles had been built. The Lee Enfield became far more than just a tool. It was a lifeline in the trenches, often the only thing standing between a soldier and death. Veterans described their rifles with a respect bordering on affection. Many could identify the exact feel of the bolt cycling or the moment the trigger would break. In an environment where equipment failure could be fatal, the Lee Enfield earned a reputation for unwavering dependability. It saw action in every major First World War theater. British and Commonwealth troops carried it through the scorching deserts of Mesopotamia, the rugged landscapes of Palestine, and the mountains of Italy. Each environment presented unique challenges, and the rifle met every one of them. A gun originally designed for universal service had now proven itself in a truly global conflict. When the armistice came in November 1918, the Lee Enfield story was only beginning. During the interwar years, the British military revised its naming system. In 1926, the SMLE Mark III was redesignated as the Rifle No. 1 Mark III. Development continued, and toward the end of the 1930s, a new version emerged. The rifle number 4 Mark I, officially adopted in 1941, featured improvements for mass production, including a stronger receiver, simplified bolt release, and a peep sight mounted on the receiver rather than on the barrel. Its heavier barrel and sturdier construction made it easier and cheaper to build in large quantities. World War II would put the rifle to the test once more, on an even larger scale. During the 1940 evacuation at Dunkirk, British troops clung to their Lee Enfields as they fought to escape encirclement. In the North African desert, the rifle proved its durability against Axis forces. In the thick jungles of Burma, where heat and humidity ruined other firearms, the Lee Enfield kept working flawlessly. On the shores of Normandy and through the hedgerows of France, a new generation came to trust the same weapon their fathers carried decades earlier.
During the Second World War, Lee Enfield production reached unprecedented numbers. More than 4.2 million No. 4 Mark I rifles were built across Britain, Canada, and the United States. At Long Branch Arsenal near Toronto, Canadian factories turned out roughly 1.5 million rifles between 1941 and 1945, while Savage Stevens in the U.S. produced Lend-Lease rifles marked U.S. property. At the same time, Australia continued to produce the older No. 1 Mark III at the Lithgow Arsenal, and India's Ishapur Rifle Factory manufactured more than 600,000 rifles. Altogether, the total number of Lee Enfields built throughout history is believed to exceed 17 million. The rifle's adaptability stretched far beyond standard infantry roles. Sniper-configured models with telescopic sights served British and Commonwealth marksmen in both world wars. Those precision-selected rifles, paired with high-quality optics, delivered lethal results in capable hands. The No. 4 Mark I-T sniper variant, introduced in 1942, stayed in British service into the 1990s, long after the regular infantry had upgraded to newer weapons. Even after World War II, as many nations shifted to semi-automatic rifles, the Lee Enfield remained in action. British troops fighting communist insurgents in the jungles of Malaya during the 1950s relied on Lee Enfields thanks to their durability in tropical heat and humidity and their suitability for close-range jungle fighting. Newer rifles needed more maintenance. This one just worked. Britain officially adopted the L1A1 self-loading rifle in 1957, but the transition took time. The Lee Enfield continued to serve widely into the early 1960s, and reserve units and Commonwealth forces kept it much longer. The L42A1 sniper rifle, a 7.62 mm conversion of the No. 4 Mark I, remained in British use until the early 1990s. Perhaps even more striking was the rifle's continued use outside the former empire. As British colonies became independent, their new armies inherited enormous stocks of Lee Enfields. India manufactured and issued them well into the 21st century, with some units still deploying them in Kashmir. In Afghanistan, rifles captured or supplied across decades resurfaced in conflict after conflict. Tribal fighters in Pakistan's frontier regions carried Lee Enfields alongside modern assault rifles into the 2000s. Its longevity came down to several strengths. It was built tough enough to function for generations. Its .303 British cartridge remained effective at typical combat distances. And its 10-round magazine, though smaller than that of semi-automatics, still delivered respectable firepower. Most importantly, for nations with limited budgets or industry, vast existing stockpiles of Lee Enfield provided an affordable, practical armament solution. One of the clearest tributes to its durability came from the Canadian Rangers. Since 1947, these Arctic patrol units carried No. 4 Mark I rifles in some of the harshest climates on Earth. Working in temperatures as low as -51°C, facing polar bears, and conducting remote sovereignty patrols, the Rangers relied on their Lee Enfields for 70 years.
The rifle's simple mechanics, wooden furniture that remained usable in extreme cold, and consistent reliability made it ideal for their mission. Only when spare parts ran out did they finally transition between 2018 and 2019 to the Colt Canada C19. That switch marked the end of Lee Enfield service in any major military force. More than 130 years after the original Lee Metford rifle entered British service, the design's legacy extended well beyond its direct military role. Its emphasis on speed and practical battlefield accuracy influenced later British small arms. The detachable double-column magazine system James Paris Lee pioneered became the blueprint for countless modern repeating and automatic weapons, and two-column magazines are now a universal standard. In the civilian world, the Lee Enfield continued to thrive. Millions of surplus rifles reached the market after World War II, and shooters valued them for their historical significance, reasonable cost, and dependable accuracy. Competitions dedicated specifically to Lee Enfield still exist, where participants replicate the rapid, precise shooting once expected of British soldiers. The rifle's cultural legacy remains strong in former Commonwealth countries. The image of a British Tommy gripping his SMLE on the Western Front or an Anzac at Gallipoli endures as a symbol of courage and resilience. The Lee Enfield forms a direct physical connection to more than a century of military history and the people who carried it. What made the Lee Enfield exceptional was not unmatched accuracy at extreme distances. German Mausers and American Springfields held that advantage. Nor was it the pinnacle of mechanical elegance. The Mauser action was superior from a design purist's perspective. Its greatness lay in a flawless combination of real-world qualities: speed, reliability, sufficient accuracy, and the ability to function when other rifles faltered. Its smooth bolt cycling, large magazine, and rugged performance in brutal conditions mattered far more than theoretical superiority. As a result, the Lee Enfield enjoyed a longer military career than any other bolt-action service rifle in history. From Victorian colonial wars to counterinsurgency battles in the 21st century, it proved adaptable to every generation of combat. It survived 2 global wars, the shift to semi-automatics, and even the rise of assault rifles. When it was finally retired, it was not because it had become ineffective, but because the battlefield had moved into a new technological era. Yet even today, in remote corners of the world, there are likely still Lee Enfields in service, continuing a mission that began over a century ago. The rifle that refused to die still lives up to its reputation. It stands as a testament to intelligent engineering and the essential truth that a weapon's worth is measured not by sophistication, but by its ability to keep operating when its user's life depends on it. The Lee Enfield was created by designers who understood soldiers, and it served those soldiers faithfully for more than 130 years of continuous military duty. If you enjoyed this exploration of military history, be sure to subscribe for more deep dives into both famous and forgotten firearms. Let us know in the comments which weapon you'd like to see us cover next. Your idea might shape an upcoming episode.